morning. Thank you for being here on this windy morning. Appreciate it. I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Butko. I'm the Director of Publications at the Heinz History Center in Pittsburgh. And it's an honor to be here with all of you and to be honoring Fredrick Ingersoll this morning, a Pittsburgher who has gone mostly forgotten over the years, but finally going to get his due here. I'm a lifelong West Mifflin resident myself, live just up the hill from here, and have written 2 books on the park so far, with a 3rd one to come through the History Center. And that's all because of a collaboration with the Kennywood Park, which has also, among other things, donated all its archival holdings to the History Center. So I hope in a couple years you'll be hearing more about the book, the archives, and the possibility of an exhibition. So we're all excited for all of that. But today, of course, we're here for Fredrick Ingersoll. And I know many of you that I've talked to, including Jim Futrell, we all heard about Fredrick Ingersoll first from Carl Hughes, who used to tell us stories of him and his Luna Park and how he ought to have a marker. So it's quite appropriate that it's come to this today. My own journey started 2.5 years ago, rushing to the post office with 2 minutes left to nominate Ingersoll, and it has taken this long, actually through the hard work of a lot of you people here and the gentleman here behind me. So with Ingersoll himself, you know, he was a complicated individual. I think none of us are really sure at this removed more than a century later. Was he a huckster, or was he a genius, or maybe he was a little bit of both? And I think that's quite appropriate, and especially since where we are today, the first coaster that he built at Kennywood would have been right there where the skyrocket is today. And how appropriate that the markers here will be right across from it. Of course, Kennywood did honor him already with the building of Lost Kennywood, which is devoted to all the parks of that era, the World's Fair style parks, but also it's literally an homage to Ingersoll and Luna Park, which is kind of funny that first he helped build the first rides at Kennywood, including the old mill, which I believe is the oldest continuously operating dark ride in the world, even though it's been rebuilt from what he originally built. He built the coaster. He built 3 other coasters here, including the park's original racer. And so with all that combined, it's quite appropriate to have the marker here. So without further ado, I want to introduce my boss at the History Center, Andrew Masich, who's the Director and CEO of the History Center, but also here representing the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission. So, Andy?
Thank you, Brian. Thanks, everyone, for coming out today. When Brian said huckster or genius, I thought he was talking about me for a minute. But it's really Fredrick Ingersoll that we're here to honor. I bring greetings from Governor Tom Wolf and from the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, the state's official history agency. This agency is overseen by a body of commissioners. We have Ken Turner with us today. Ken, he's one of our commissioners. And they oversee a statewide marker program. It's one of the best in the nation, and there are over 1,000 markers around the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Kennywood here, I think, has more historic markers than any place in Pennsylvania. There are 3 clustered here together. We're honoring the park itself, one of the oldest and best loved amusement parks in America. We're honoring the Braddock crossing. In 1755, George Washington and General Edward Braddock crossed with an army of 1,300 men right here. They crossed right through the park. In fact, you'll see a statue of George Washington just past the Candy Kaleidoscope there, that red-roofed building, and then proceeded down to the Monongahela River, where they crossed the river. It was only knee-deep in the summer of 1755. And there they ran into French and Indian forces. It was the worst defeat of British arms in North American history. George Washington was one of the only British officers who was not killed or wounded in this conflict. And Washington brought the survivors back right across where Kennywood is today, over that hill and, well, into history. So it's altogether fitting and proper that we recognize the historic events that are here. And today we're going to honor that huckster genius, Fredrick Ingersoll. And I'm delighted to be here, both representing the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission and the Senator John Heinz History Center. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. And now we have representing Kennywood, its General Manager, Jerome Gibas.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Kennywood. I do have this perfect script here that Nick put together for me, but I'm not real good at reading from scripts sometimes, so I'm going to kind of ad-lib here. I'm not as good as Andy, but I'll try to be as close as I can to him. But as you know, we are celebrating the opening of our 121st season here at Kennywood, and it's going to be a great season. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of anticipation at the park this summer. As you know, the Steel Curtain roller coaster's over here behind us, working on getting completed, so it will open this summer, as well as part of the bigger plan, which is our Steeler Country that we're opening up, that'll be opening later this summer. But it's also important to remember that Kennywood is a mix of old and new, and we always want to recognize who came before us and what they did to create this great facility that we have. We can never lose sight that we have to honor the people who established the park and kept it going. So I always talk to people about Kennywood, I always talk about the old and new. So when you guys go into the park, and most of you have been there many times, you'll notice that we have some very classic rides, one of a kind that you will not see anywhere else in the world. But in the same sense, we have a nice, beautiful steel coaster here. So today we're here to mark the historical past of Kennywood and the people that went along with it. I'd like to also take this time to thank our friends at the Heinz History Center, especially Brian, for all the hard work they did in putting this together for us. I also want to make a very heartfelt thanks to our folks with the American Coaster Enthusiasts, especially our Western Pennsylvania chapter, who, without their support, both financially and supporting us here, this could never have come around as well. So I do thank you, because the Western chapter of the ACE organization is the best in the country. You know? Yeah. I also want to make a couple cheers here too. I would like to thank Lauren Palmquist from the State Representative Austin Davis's office. I thank you for being here. And our good friend Bob Macy. Where's Bob at? There's Bob. I want to thank Bob for coming out as well. But I always want to never let go the fact that today is our opening day, which is our season pass holders, as well as our many guests who have come here for generation after generation to be part of what Kennywood is all about. And without them, we wouldn't be here today. So I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the summer brings. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. And yes, following on your comments, the American Coaster Enthusiasts and many of the members are here. We especially want to thank them for literally donating all the funds, which are not cheap, to pay for the actual fabrication and installation of the marker. So we really appreciate it. And here to represent ACE is Regional Representative Bill Linkenheimer.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's my pleasure to be here today to represent ACE on this occasion. I do want to introduce three people real quickly from ACE. A lot of people from ACE here right now. We have a lot of members here. If you're an ACE member, just raise your hand. A bunch of you. There's three people, though. Two of them sat on the executive committee of ACE whenever a large donation was made toward this effort. Leanne Drought, ACE's publications director right over here, was on that committee, and ACE's past president Dave Altman is in the back. They both helped vote for quite a portion of the money that was funded to help fund this. The other person here is ACE's historian. He's probably not going to put his hand up too high because he's also live streaming for ACE's Facebook right now. Dave Hahner in the front row. For those of you not familiar with ACE, we are a worldwide organization. We do a lot of different things. We have a quarterly, beautiful 48-page magazine. We have an annual convention that has contests and presentations and a banquet. We're probably most known for riding coasters. We're the crazy people that get up early in the morning and get on the rides before the park opens, stay for an hour or two after the park closes, and we ride. So that's what people know us for, is those crazy coaster people. But we do have a lot of serious elements in preserving the historic aspects of amusement parks and roller coasters, preserving actual roller coasters, documenting and educating is all part of our mission. And one of the things we do is roller coaster landmarks. We grant landmark plaques to historic coasters. And I wasn't going to mention this, but since Brian mentioned it, or Andy mentioned that there's only one place in the country where there's, or in the state, where there's 3 historic markers like this, Kennywood is also the only park in the world to have 3 ACE roller coaster landmark coasters, which is pretty incredible. And ACE also does a lot of things to help fund things. Pennsylvania is a very rich state when it comes to wooden coasters. There's 19 wooden coasters in Pennsylvania, which, as Dave Altman brought to my attention, is more than any other state in the country, as well as any country in the entire world. So Pennsylvania has more coasters than any single country outside the United States. Of those, there's 2 coasters in this, not very far from here, both within 2 hours. The Blue Streak at Conneaut Lake Park and Leap Dips at Lakemont Park in Altoona, which is the world's oldest coaster. They literally would no longer be here, yet alone operating, if it wasn't for donations by ACE and help spark that. So like I said, we do fun things. We do put our money where our mouth is when it comes to not just riding coasters. And it's our pleasure today to help fund this plaque that we're about to unveil. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Bill. You make a good point that we're really lucky in Western Pennsylvania to have such a rich variety of amusement parks, and especially the distribution of them from here to Erie, and the age of them. And of course, Kennywood is one of only 2 parks that is a National Historic Landmark. So parks are on the National Register that is far and above that level. So congratulations to Kennywood staff for keeping that designation. We really appreciate it. And so I think now we are going to unveil the new marker. So with a little help from my friends.
Are you ready? Ready for the big reveal?
Ready, dealer.
Wait, we gotta let Nick get ready. You pull your way, I'll let him as soon as he's ready. The anticipation. There it is. Are we gonna read it? Fredrick Ingersoll, 1874 to 1927, a pioneer, leading visionary, huckster and genius in the design of amusement rides and parks. His figure 8 coasters and other inventions were found across the U.S. He launched his chain of brightly illuminated Luna parks in Pittsburgh, Oakland neighborhood in 1905, which inspired other Luna parks around the world. He built and operated some of Kennywood's first rides, such as the Old Mill and 4 coasters, including the park's first racer. There you have it. Making history here at Kennywood.
Well, thank you all for coming to our little ceremony. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you in the future, maybe in the park later today, or at some of those ACE conventions, or down at the History Center. Thank you again.
Well, I gotta wear my Thomas shirt for everybody because this is opening day for Thomas.